These cases began as an investigation into family child sex abuse.
These cases began as an investigation into family child sex abuse. That was Venton County Prosecutor William Archer.
The news.
These cases began as an investigation into family child sex abuse. Law enforcement sought the DNA of Gary Cers Jr. related to the child sex abuse case. Once Cers Jr. was located, search warrants were executed to secure his DNA for genetic testing. Upon serving the search warrants for the child sex abuse case, the existence and condition of the 16 children at the Omar Street house became known. The child sex abuse cases involve intra-family relations and do not pose a risk to the general public, and I would also add, does not involve human trafficking. This case all started with diligent Dollar General clerks calling authorities with concerns over children they observed. We ask the public to be mindful of the circumstances around them, especially involving children. We continue to ask for the public's respect for the rights and privacy of the child victims in this case. I'd like to add a thank you to the Venton County Sheriff's Office and BCI for their investigative efforts, which have been amazing. This case is going to be prosecuted by myself, Kara Keating, Assistant Attorney General, and Annika Collins, Highland County Prosecuting Attorney. Thank you.
Standing behind a microphone explaining how 16 children were found inside a house in Hampton, Ohio. 16 children. The prosecutor used the past tense. Began. As if the investigation started with the family and led to the house. But the actual sequence is reversed. The house was found first. The children were found first. The investigation into family child sex abuse was the reason law enforcement had a warrant to walk through the door. So the sentence is true and false at the same time. That is the sound of a system describing its own blind spot. Now fix that image in your mind. Picture a single family home with a narrow driveway and a front door that has been opened by a search warrant. Inside, there are 16 children. Now picture the same house from the outside. 1 week earlier, the lawn is ordinary. The windows are closed. The mailbox is standing. To anyone driving past, the house is unremarkable. But inside, 16 children were living in a condition that made a Dollar General clerk pick up the phone. Not a teacher, not a doctor, not a social worker, a retail employee. That is the visual that defines this entire case. A house that looked exactly like every other house on Omar Street until a DNA swab forced the door open. 16 children were hidden in plain sight. Before we go deeper into what the documents actually show, make sure you're subscribed to Endless Cryme, because we don't just cover the story, we follow the evidence. The official narrative starts in December 2025.
A Venton County grand jury today has issued indictments in 3 criminal cases involving sexual abuse and child endangerment. These charges stem from criminal investigations conducted by the Venton County Sheriff's Office and the Ohio Bureau of Criminal Investigations, BCI. The cases are being prosecuted by the Venton County Prosecutor's Office with the assistance from the Highland County Prosecutor's Office and the Ohio Attorney General's Special Prosecutions Unit. In December of 2025, at the request of the Venton County Sheriff's Office, BCI's Special Victims Unit opened an investigation into allegations of sexual abuse involving 2 children. Information obtained in this investigation prompted BCI in March of 26 to open a second investigation, this one involving allegations of unlawful sexual conduct with a minor. On June 30th, authorities executed a search warrant at a residence in Hampton, Ohio, and Venton County on Omar Street. There have been a lot of speculation and questions regarding the June 30th presence on Omar Street in Hampton. These indictments provide some insight into the ongoing investigation. However, to preserve the integrity of the ongoing investigation and to protect the victims, I conclude my statement here. I am thankful for the work of my deputies and our fellow partners at BCI. We will continue to pursue justice in these cases.
The Venton County Sheriff's Office requested help from the Ohio Bureau of Criminal Investigations, the Special Victims Unit. The request involved 2 children and allegations of sexual abuse. That is investigation number 1. In March 2026, information from that first case prompted a second investigation. This one involved unlawful sexual conduct with a minor. That is investigation number 2. By June 30, authorities executed a search warrant at a residence on Omar Street in Hampton. The stated purpose was to secure DNA from Gary Cers Jr. for genetic testing. That warrant was related to the child sex abuse case, not to the 16 children. The prosecutor said that himself. Upon serving that warrant, the existence and condition of the 16 children became known. Those are the exact words. Became known. Read that again. The children did not become safe. They did not become protected. They became known. As if they had been waiting inside a file that no one had opened. The system had a warrant for one man's DNA. and it accidentally found 16 children. That is not an investigation. That is a discovery. 16 children were hidden in plain sight. The grand jury indictment now gives the charges a shape. Gary Cers Jr. and Elizabeth Cers each face 4 felony counts, 2 counts of sexual battery, 2 counts of unlawful sexual conduct with a minor. The indictment charges that the conduct occurred between January and September 2022. The victim is described as a minor more than 10 years younger than the defendants. The victim is not a member of their immediate family. The prosecutor, however, called this an intrafamily case. Those 2 statements do not match. The press release says not immediate family. The prosecutor says intrafamily. That is a factual gap. You are supposed to notice it.
And at least since the 2 investigations were tied, the ones for which the indictment on the sex offenses against the Cers today arose from the investigation of the other 2 men indicted in the case. It may be that the same victims are involved, and that in the course of the first investigation, the victims relayed that the Cers also were involved either with the knowledge of the 2 other men and also indicted today, or whether or not they was a follow-up.
And I've learned that investigation 1, which involves Josh Saunders and Brandon Henderson, this is investigation 1 that it began in December of 2025. The information about Gary Cers Jr. and Elizabeth Cers was developed from that investigation. So that is what led the law enforcement officers initially to that house on June 30th. People were saying, oh, it's because they went there for a public indecency warrant for Gary Jr. I think you and I knew the whole time, and I've been saying the whole time, no, they didn't go there with a search warrant for a public indecency case. This was going to be much more serious.
Yeah, and I think we both kind of concluded that at the time, based on the conduct of the investigators. You don't have the Ohio Attorney General down in Venton County for a warrant on a exposing case. And it's interesting how that exposing case may tie in with these subsequent charges. The only thing I can try and extrapolate from this is either the 2 men that are charged in the case as well are providing information to the prosecutor and the attorney general that led them to the Cers, or alternatively, the victims in that case provided information that the 2 men not only perped on them, but that the Cers were involved in sexual misconduct with them. Either of those options would tell me is likely as to how they got on the doorstep.
The elder Cers, Gary Sr. and Christina, were indicted on child endangering counts, felonies of the 2nd degree, felonies of the 3rd degree, misdemeanors. They are not charged with sex crimes. So the official record now splits into 2 layers. The grandparents face a pile of endangerment charges. The parents face sex crime charges involving a minor who is not their child. That distinction matters. It means the sexual abuse case did not begin inside the walls of the Omar Street house. It began somewhere else, and that somewhere else is still under investigation. Now consider the trigger. The prosecutor said the case all started with diligent Dollar General clerks calling authorities with concerns over children they observed. Not a neighbor, not a family member, not a mandatory reporter. Dollar General clerks. Low-wage shift workers in a discount store. They saw something in the way the children looked or behaved, and they made the call. That is the irony explosion. The state of Ohio had a Bureau of Criminal Investigations. It had a sheriff's office. It had an attorney general's special prosecutions unit. And yet the first alarm came from a checkout counter. The system had every tool. The clerks had only their eyes.
What's very interesting to me about this, Ron, I went down to Venton County, and employees at the Dollar General said to me, I'm really sorry. I can't talk to you. I can't talk to you. And I thought maybe it was a corporate thing. Corporate came down on them and said, no, we don't do that. Because a lot of times when you're dealing with these big chains, you have to go through, the corporate media relations office and things of that nature. And now I'm wondering, were these the people that potentially called in to law enforcement?
And that well could be the case. And the law enforcement personnel would have told them not to talk to anybody such as yourself or others.
So ask yourself this: if a DNA warrant was the only thing that pulled back the curtain on Omar Street, how many other houses are waiting for their own Dollar General moment? That is the thriller buried inside this legal filing. The state did not find the children. The state found a man's DNA, and the children were in the way. That changes the meaning of every official statement that follows.
So the sheriff said that this investigation is ongoing. And we know from the Venton County prosecutor telling the commissioners we're seeking permanent custody of the children, that's going to happen, and they will more than likely be successful in obtaining permanent custody of the children, especially if there's a conviction on a sex crime. So I'm thinking to myself, if this investigation is ongoing, is there going to be more there? Are we going to see potentially more indictments?
Well, at least if they thought they had enough on inter-family sexual misconduct, I would have included it in the indictment today. And so either they don't have enough because it wasn't going on inside the family home, or the children are still in the process of being interviewed, going through social workers and psychological treatment and testing, and they may not want to proceed at this point. They can always, as you know, produce a superseding indictment.
Here's the hard evidence.
Well, that was somewhat telegraphed, as we talked about the other day, by
Yeah.
a statement of the prosecutor from Venton County in opposing reduction of bond for Elizabeth. And so we knew something was coming. What seems surprising about this, and it is really unclear as to who the alleged victims are, it looks like the indictment or charges against the two siders go back to 2022, the first quarter
Yes.
of 2022, against unnamed victims, but they were related to the investigation of the other two people indicted on sex offenses today. Curiously enough, the press release indicates that the victims were not a member of the immediate family of the siders, but at the same time, the statement given by the county prosecutor would seem that perhaps they were. So that's something that you and others are going to have to dig into and clarify.
The sheriff said in December 2025, BCI opened an investigation into allegations of sexual abuse involving two children. In March 2026, a second investigation opened. On June 30, the search warrant was executed. The grand jury returned indictments in 3 criminal cases. 3, that means there are other defendants. The former Franklin County prosecutor, Ron O'Brien, noted that 2 other men were indicted in connection with the first investigation. Their names appear in the timeline. The prosecutor said the child sex abuse cases involve intrafamily relations and do not pose a risk to the general public. That phrase is doing a lot of work. It tells the public not to panic. It tells the public the abuse was not committed by strangers. But it also tells the public that the victims and the accused share a family tree. Yet the indictment against the Cers parents says the victim is not a member of their immediate family. That means the family tree is wider than the household, and that is where the unanswered question sits. The sheriff said the investigation is ongoing. The prosecutor said the children are being interviewed through social workers and psychological treatment. There may be a superseding indictment.
Ron, let's move on now to the elder Siders. Gary Cers Sr. is 73 years old. He's out on a signature bond wearing a GPS bracelet. When he was released on that signature bond because of his serious medical issues, the Venton County prosecutor said, look, he's not a threat to the public. But he and his wife, Christina, the grandparents, have now been indicted. They're facing 2 counts of child endangering felonies in the 2nd degree, 10 counts of endangering children, felonies of the 3rd degree, and then 7 counts of endangering children. Those are misdemeanors. They are not charged with any sex crimes. So how do you see their cases ending up? Because, I mean, they're challenging their competency, or at least their lawyers are saying they may not be competent to stand trial. However, they have not been charged with any sex crimes.
Yes, it's interesting that the elder Siders were not indicted on any sex offenses, either within the family or outside the family. They are just facing the multiple endangering children charges that range from a misdemeanor up to the 2nd degree felony. So what we can conclude from that is apparently they don't have enough evidence now.
Those are not statements of closure. They are statements of delay. The grand jury has indicted, but the full scope of the house on Omar Street has not been described in any public document. The court has not yet said how 16 children lived there without anyone outside knowing. The court has not yet said why the DNA warrant was the first time the house appeared on law enforcement radar. The court has not yet said whether the parents were charged with sex crimes against a minor outside the family or inside the family. The language is precise and contradictory. 16 children were hidden in plain sight. Now go do the research yourself. Pull the Venton County Court of Common Pleas docket. Find the indictment for Gary Cers Jr. and Elizabeth Cers. Read the victim description line word for word. Then look at the prosecutor's statement calling it an intrafamily case. The two documents sit side by side. In the comments, answer one question. Why does the indictment say the victim is not a member of the immediate family while the prosecutor calls the case intrafamily? Do not tell me what you feel. Tell me what the document says. Because the answer to that question tells you whether this case is about one house or about an entire family system. If you want to follow the next filing, like and share this video so the algorithm puts the evidence in front of more people. Subscribe to Endless Cryme and turn on notifications because the next superseding indictment will not be announced with a press conference. It will be buried in the docket, and we will be there before the headlines.